On the agenda tonight, we're going back to the late 80s. We're going to be taking a look at Jerry Jeff Walker, and he's going to be performing Mr. Bojangles. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. First of all, thank you everyone for the messages requesting this video tonight following the sad news that Jerry Jeff Walker passed away recently. We're going to be taking a look at him performing his classic hit, Mr. Bojangles, in the late 80s, and the video is about 4 minutes in length, so we're going to watch it the whole way through, and the frame rate of the video isn't particularly high, but the audio is fine, so we'll get Jeff up on screen and enjoy this.
First one takes place down in New Orleans. I knew a man, Bojangles, and he danced for you. Worn out shoes, silver hair, a ragged shirt and baggy pants. Did the old soft shoe, jumped so high, jumped so high, and then he lighted a touchdown. Whoa, Mr. Bojangles, you Mr. Bojangles. Oh, now Mr. Bojangles, won't you come on down? Met him in a cell in New Orleans, and I was down, down and out. He looked to me to be the eyes of age, as spoke right out. He talked of his life, talked of his life. He lapsed up his leg step, said the name Bojangles, and he danced a lick across the cell. He grabbed his pants, a better stench, then he jumped up high. He clicked his heels, he let him go laugh. Oh, he let him go laugh. Shook back his clothes all around. Oh, Mr. Bojangles, oh, now Mr. Bojangles. Oh, Mr. Bojangles, won't you come on down? He danced for those at minstrel shows and county fairs throughout the South. Spoke of tears, 15 years I was dogging him. They traveled and bound till his dog up and died. Said he up and died. After 20 years he still grieves. Said I danced at every chance in honky tonks, for drinks and tips, but most of the time I spend behind these county bars, and I drink some beer. He shook his head, and as he shook his head, I heard someone ask him, please. Oh, now Mr. Bojangles, yeah. Oh, Mr. Bojangles, woo, yeah. Oh, now Mr. Bojangles, won't you come on down? Oh, yeah, I knew a man, Bojangles, and he just danced for you.
And there we have it. It's just a guy and a guitar, a fantastic song. And this is the thing about country music. I mean, when I say about Jerry being a country artist and being associated with outlaw country as well, this song was one that just captured the imagination of everybody because it is such a great story. And that's something that you always get in country music, is that foundation in the meaning of the song and the artist telling a story. And this is one of those songs that I have looked at before. It was a video on Sammy Davis Jr. And if you haven't seen that one, check that one out, because Sammy Davis Jr. does such a great version of this song. But it's one of these compositions that can be taken on so many different ways and arranged so many different ways because of the quality of the writing in the first place. And this is something that Sammy Davis Jr. did with it, slowed it down and had the full orchestra going in the background as well. But here, Jerry just initially performing on the guitar and his voice, that's all he needed. A lot of people, when they think about this composition, won't necessarily think of country music or that it sounds like country music at all. And in this performance, we do have the country vocal techniques in there from Jerry. He's got that twang to his voice. Also, the way that he flips up into head voice at the end of the performance, but also for a short duration during the performance, it's always in there. But it's this time signature that we have. It's in 3/4 and also 6/8, which is just double of 3/4. So as long as you're counting to 3, you'll be absolutely fine here for all of your bars. And this is the first thing that's going to start setting it apart from other country songs that are in 4/4. And also the progression, we've got quite a lot of chords going on here. Sometimes country songs can be 4 chords or 6 chords that are just going to be looped around and with a melody changing from the verse into the chorus. But here we have this descending run down from C and then down to B, down to A, down to G, down to F as well. I know that we have got a capo here on the 2nd fret, so technically we're not in C, we're in D, but I will get the guitar out in a second. We'll have a little run through it. But the things that make it sound not country is this 3/4 time signature and also the rhythm that's being put in there. It's more of a shuffle with the upstrokes that Jerry's throwing in. It's going to give it a little bit of bounce, and that's certainly the feel and the groove that we've got throughout the performance. So referring to some of the things that I've mentioned with 3/4 timing and 6/8 timing, as long as you count to 3, you'll be fine, because we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like that. So just count to 3. You can count to 6 if you want to on the chords where you're holding it for twice as long. But the groove is the most important thing to mention with the upstroke, because that is where we're going to be making our chord changes, but it gives it that bounce. So when we get this 1, 2, 3 up, as we then move 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 up, 1. And you can see how that upstroke is ever so slightly delayed because it's got that swing, a little bit of that shuffle in there. So when we go 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 up, 1, you want to try and delay that upstroke as much as you can rather than going 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 up, 1, because now we're playing straight. And by playing it straight, it means that you erase any of the groove that is in this performance, and you definitely don't want to lose that. It's not going to be an instructional video, but the main points are with that right hand, focus on your beats of the bar, 1, 2, 3, just straight down strokes. That's what we've got here from Jerry before then putting in that bouncy upstroke, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1. Like that. And as long as you start locking into that groove, you'll be fine. An important thing to mention is that Jerry also throws in an upstroke sometimes halfway through the strumming sequence when he's spending double as long on a chord, for example the F and the G. And as we descend from the C, and just a quick word on the progression, the way that we flow down, it's like walking down a staircase, going down from the C, B, A, G, F, G, and then we're going back up to the C. Just to give a quick example of that extra upstroke, I'll play it on the F and the G, and I'll play it just straight with one upstroke descending down from the C, but hopefully you'll be able to spot it on the F and the G. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, like that. And breaking that down, it means that in the beginning, without the chords, this is just now showing you what's happening with the right hand rhythm. We've got this 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up. It's hard to say it, but we're going 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up. So that's where that extra upstroke comes in, and you'll be able to hear the difference between those. Even if I'm just playing on the C and I'm going 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 3, up. Like that. You can start to hear and experience and feel the extra bounce that's in there with that extra upstroke. So it's something that Jerry just throws in now and again in order to put a little bit more bounce into the performance and the overall sound. The great thing about this composition is that the progression takes you down that staircase, but then we return back to the top of the staircase when we resolve back to C. And the C chord is your home base here. It's going to sound familiar. It means that it's not too progressive, even though we do start to take a different journey when we get to the chorus. But this progression of the C you can almost play those notes in there again, ascending, to go back to where you started, because that's how familiar it sounds and it feels when you get back to that C. You almost want to go all the way up and all the way down. And this is why when we then break off into a different progression or a different chord, it's going to be even more dramatic because we're now leaving the staircase. So by the time we get up to the G at the end of this verse progression and we go back to the F that we've just heard, it signifies the start of a new part of the journey. So we've got this F, C, into the E7th, into the A, run down, that into the G. And just a point here, if you are playing the G like Jerry does, he leaves his first finger and his third finger free so that he can play, he can place that first finger in on the second fret of the D string, third finger comes in on the third fret of the D string, back to the first finger of the second. So we've got this like that. It's just a run that you'll hear in there before getting into the chorus, which is going to be the A minor to the G, A minor, G, A minor, to the C, run down, and then we're back into the verse. When you're listening to Jerry perform it, you're listening to the lyrical content of the song, and the melody works so well over the top as well, ascending as we get into the chorus, which always tends to be the case with all of the hits. You want to take that vocal from a lower place pitch-wise to the highest place in the chorus, and that's what we have here. The whole song really does flow from one section to the next, and that is most evident by the fact that the chorus ends with the progression that the verse then starts with. It's one of those songs that so many artists have connected with on a deep level, but also is really nice just to play because of the melody of the vocal and the way that those chords progress. Even though you're just strumming the C and an A minor and a G and an F, it doesn't matter, it's enjoyable doing that, and you know that you're playing a great song when you just enjoy listening to the chords by themselves without any vocal melody at all over the top. Just to give a quick background on the song, I know that I do mention this in the Sammy Davis Jr. video that I did, but Mr. Bojangles was a homeless man who was being questioned at a police station, and Jerry just bumped into him there and spoke to him. The reason he was arrested was because there was a high-profile murder in the area at that time, and because this guy was homeless, he was one of the first to be picked up by the police and questioned, even though they didn't have any evidence against him. He used the name Mr. Bojangles in order to keep his identity secret from the police, because he didn't want them knowing his real name. But Mr. Bojangles was actually the nickname of Bill Bojangles Robinson, who was the highest paid black entertainer of his era, and we're talking from 1900 to 1943 is when Bill was performing. So that's where this homeless man got the name from. Mr. Bojangles was then starting to talk about his dog who had died, and it started to take a little bit of a downturn emotionally, got a little bit heavy. So somebody said, "Can't you do something to lighten the mood, Mr. Bojangles?" So Mr. Bojangles started dancing in order to lighten the mood, and that's where the inspiration for this song came from. And Jerry just managed to weave this story together with such a great composition, and the lyrical content, the way that he delivers it. I do want to include a little bit of career information in this video as well. Jerry's parents weren't musicians, but his grandparents were. His grandma played piano and his granddad played the fiddle, so he might have got his musical inclinations from there. On leaving school, he joined up with the National Guard, and he went AWOL, unfortunately, from there, and was discharged. He then started busking for a living in New Orleans and Texas, Florida, New York as well, and he was regularly accompanied by his friend H.R. Stoneback. In the late 1950s, he did play in a band called The Tones, but then returned to being a solo artist, performing under the name Jerry Francis and Jeff Walker. He then put those two names together in order to come up with Jerry Jeff Walker. He was Ronald Crosby before this, but then he did change his name in order to be known as Jerry Jeff Walker from then on, once he decided that that was going to be his stage name and his real name now going forward in real life. In the mid-1960s, Jerry was spending a lot of time in Greenwich Village, performing there, and in the late 1960s, he was then part of a band called Circus Maximus. But unfortunately, it didn't last particularly long because the band was being pulled in different directions. He was in that band with Bob Bruno, who was very much into jazz, whereas Jerry wanted to go more in the folk direction, so they decided that they couldn't pull it in both directions, so then went their separate ways. It was after this, in 1968, that Jerry released his album Mr. Bojangles, and that was put together with the help of David Bromberg. And in the 1970s, he settled in Austin, Texas, and this is where he was very much associated with the outlaw country scene there, and he released albums for MCA and Elektra Records, and he was regularly charting in the country charts throughout the 1970s. Into the 1980s, this is when Jerry moved away from the mainstream music industry. He set up his own record label in 1986. His wife Susan was the president of that label. They also set up a management company. So Susan was managing Jerry, and they set up a booking company. So they were in control of everything. So it definitely is a wise move if you can do that even nowadays in the music industry. He has released around about 37 albums, including compilation albums. And with this song, Mr. Bojangles, it's one of those that Sammy Davis Jr. was known for. So Jerry Jeff Walker was one of those artists that facilitated the creativity and artistry of so many other performers, musicians, and this is one of those compositions and performances that we've just watched that keeps you captivated the whole time, just listening to the story of the song, playing and singing at the same time, just a guy with a guitar. It is true artistry, and something that would inspire so many future generations of artists up until the current day who just love to do their own version of Mr. Bojangles from Jerry Jeff Walker. What a great composition and artist in his own right. But thank you guys for all of the requests for this video. I hope you did enjoy it, and I'll see you guys at the next one.